The Fire Within, a story of courage and redemption. They thought she'd cower, that she'd swallow the taunts, the sneers, the sharp edges of their cruelty, and hurry past with her head bowed, like so many before her. But Sarah Johnson wasn't built to bend. She arrived at Lincoln High with a quiet strength forged in a life of hard lessons, her fists trained but restrained, her heart set on blending into the background. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Sarah carried a fire inside her, one that would soon burn through their carefully constructed world of privilege and power. This isn't just a story about standing up to bullies. It's about what happens when someone refuses to stay silent, sparking a reckoning that changes everything. Sarah Johnson stepped through the double doors of Lincoln High on a crisp September morning, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floors of the main hallway. At 16, she was small, barely 5'4", with dark skin and a guarded gaze that missed nothing. This was her fourth school in 6 years, each move tied to her father's career as a retired Army sergeant turned martial arts coach. "This is home now, Sarah," he'd promised as they unpacked in their modest suburban house just outside Columbus, Ohio. No more running. So Sarah packed light, carrying only what she needed: a backpack, a few notebooks, and the hope of staying invisible. But invisibility was impossible. The hallway seemed to hold its breath as she passed, not with welcome, but with the cold curiosity of a small-town school sizing up the new black girl. Whispers slithered behind cupped hands. Eyes darted her way, then away. By the time she reached her locker, she felt the weight of it, not the air conditioning, but the judgment. She was an outsider in a place where lineage mattered, where names like Bradley, Carter, and Ellis carried weight. Lincoln High was their kingdom, and Sarah had just walked into it. Her first collision came before homeroom. Rushing to find her class, she turned a corner and bumped into a wall of muscle. Jake Bradley, the Golden Boy quarterback, blond and broad-shouldered, his smile as sharp as a blade. Her books hit the floor. "Sorry," she mumbled, kneeling to gather them. Jake stepped over her notebook, his voice dripping with mockery. "Well, look who wandered out of the jungle." His friends Carter and Ellis nickered behind him. Sarah froze, her father's voice echoing in her mind. "Don't react. Don't let them win." She stood, meeting Jake's gaze with a calm that unsettled him, if only for a second. She said nothing, but the laughter followed her all the way to class. That night, Sarah stood in her garage, wrapping her fists in tape, her reflection staring back from a cracked mirror. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just replayed Jake's words, the hallway silence, the sting of being seen but not human. She'd promised herself she wouldn't use what her father had taught her, not here, not unless she had to. But the next morning, her locker was plastered with photocopies, her face crudely photoshopped onto a lion's body, the words "Safari Trash" scrawled in bold. The hallway watched, silent as ever. Sarah peeled the papers down, her hands steady, but inside, something sparked, a storm brewing beneath her calm. By lunch, she'd learned the unwritten rules. The black kids sat together in the cafeteria's far corner, not out of choice, but survival. There were only a handful, their faces etched with a quiet exhaustion Sarah recognized. She joined them, her tray untouched, when a voice cut through. "You the one from the locker?" Maya, a senior with braided hair and a guarded tone, leaned forward. "I'm Sarah," she said softly. Maya nodded. "Whole school knows now. I'm Maya. Word of advice? Keep your head down." Sarah blinked. "I didn't do anything." Maya's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. "You exist. That's enough." Maya explained the hierarchy. Jake Bradley, Carter, and Ellis were untouchable. Jake's father, the mayor, funded the school's new football field. Carter's family owned half the town's businesses. Ellis's grandfather had a wing named after him in the library. "They're not just bullies," Maya whispered. "They're legacy kings. They don't need a reason to make your life hell." Sarah's appetite vanished. She stared at her sandwich, the words sinking in. "Survive first. Speak later." The harassment escalated. Her books were knocked from her locker, gum smeared on the handles, the word "monkey" scratched faintly into her binder. In homeroom, someone pulled her chair out just as she sat, sending her crashing to the floor. Laughter erupted. Carter's chuckle, Ellis's snort, Jake's silent smirk, the worst of all. Rumors spread like wildfire. She got kicked out of her last school for fighting. Her dad's in jail. She carries a knife. Each lie was a stone in her backpack, but Sarah carried them, her silence her armor. Then came the cafeteria showdown. Jake sauntered to her table, his presence loud enough to draw every eye. "Well, if it isn't Miss Safari," he drawled, dropping into a chair. "I was thinking you could lead a tribal dance for Black History Month. Teach us your ways." The room laughed, sharp and cruel. Sarah's pulse roared, her fingers digging into an apple until it split. She met his gaze, her eyes too calm. Jake leaned closer. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue." She stood, slow and deliberate. "You're not worth it," she said, her voice soft but cutting. She turned to leave, but Jake grabbed her wrist not hard, just enough to claim control. The room went still. Sarah's body stiffened. Memories flooded back, a boy in her old neighborhood grabbing her after a game, laughing as he pinned her. Her father had pulled her away then. Not this time. She turned, locking eyes with Jake. "Let go," she said, her voice ablade. His smile faltered. He released her. The cafeteria was silent as she walked away, each step steady, but inside, a line had been crossed. This wasn't just bullying. It was a declaration of war. The stairwell was a mistake. Sarah stayed late, finishing a history paper in the library, avoiding the crowded halls. The sun had set, casting long shadows down the older wing. She heard the footsteps before she saw them, confident, unhurried. She turned a corner and slammed into Jake. Behind her, Carter and Ellis closed in. "We need to remind you where you belong," Jake said, his tone amused, not angry. Sarah's heart pounded, but her body hummed with training. "Don't touch me," she said quietly. Jake laughed. "Or what? You'll hit me? You'll be expelled before my dad signs his next budget." Carter stepped closer, his breath hot on her neck. "Let's see if she fights back," he murmured. Then he reached out, his fingers grazing her jaw, slow and deliberate, as if testing her. The air thickened, heavy with threat. Sarah saw the slap coming, the tilt of his shoulder, the shift in his weight. In that split second, something broke inside her, not fear, but the dam she'd built to hold back her strength. Her hand shot up, catching Carter's wrist mid-swing. The sound of flesh meeting flesh echoed, but it wasn't the slap he'd intended. Sarah held his arm firm, her eyes blazing. "You don't get to touch me," she said, her voice thunderous. She twisted, pivoting her hips, and threw him against the wall. He hit with a thud, crumpling to the floor. Jake rushed her, his arrogance cracking into rage. Sarah ducked, driving her knee into his gut. He folded, gasping. Ellis lunged, clumsy and slow. She caught his wrist, flipped him over her back, and slammed him to the ground. Silence. 3 boys lay broken, stunned, their kingdom shattered. Sarah stood, her chest rising and falling, sweat beading on her brow. "Try me again," she said, scanning their faces. "I dare you." None moved. Then, from above, footsteps soft, hesitant. Maya appeared at the top of the stairs, her eyes wide. She nodded, a quiet acknowledgement. "You good?" she asked. Sarah exhaled, her hands still clenched. "They weren't going to stop," she said. Maya stepped beside her. "You didn't just defend yourself. You sent a message." The video spread like wildfire. By Monday, it was everywhere: Telegram, Snapchat, whispered links passed in class. "Lincoln's lion just struck back," the caption read. Sarah's movements were surgical, her calm terrifying. By third period, it had thousands of views. The school shifted. People gave her space, their whispers now laced with awe or fear. She was no longer invisible, she was a force. Jake, Carter, and Ellis vanished for days, their absence buzzing with rumors of suspensions or parental pull. Sarah walked the halls, headphones in, eyes forward. But a new note appeared in her locker. "You'll regret what you did. We don't forgive humiliation." Her stomach clenched, not from fear, but fury. They weren't done. Neither was she. The principal's summons came during history class. Mrs. Harper, a no-nonsense woman with steel-gray hair, called Sarah to her office. The secretary's smile was tight as Sarah knocked and entered. Harper sat behind her desk, hands folded. "Do you know why you're here?" she asked. Sarah met her gaze. The stairwell. Harper played the security footage, grainy but clear. Sarah watched herself drop the 3 boys, her movements precise, controlled. "Did you know we had cameras?" Harper asked. Sarah shook her head. "Neither did they," Harper said, a flicker of respect in her eyes. "The boys are suspended," Harper continued. "Carter indefinitely, Jake and Ellis for 2 weeks. Do you want to press charges? Sarah hesitated. No, she said. I just wanted to stop. Harper nodded, then slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a proposal, Lincoln Girls Self-Defense Program, led by Sarah Johnson. You didn't just fight, Harper said. You showed discipline. I want you to teach others to protect themselves. Sarah blinked, the weight of the offer sinking in. She nodded. Good, Harper said. We'll announce it next week. The gym was alive with nerves as 23 girls gathered for the first self-defense class. Sarah stood before them, her voice steady. You don't need to be strong or fearless. You just need to want to protect yourself. The girls listened, their fear giving way to focus. Maya partnered with her, their movements clean, deliberate. Nervous laughter turned to confidence as girls paired off, learning to block grabs, redirect force. One girl, Emily, who'd once laughed at Jake's taunts, approached Sarah after class. I didn't know it felt like this, she said, to feel strong. Sarah nodded. It's not strength yet. It's belief. Weeks later, after the second class, Jake appeared. The gym was empty, the air heavy with sweat. He stood in the doorway, no jacket, just a hoodie and a nervous stance. I think I needed someone to beat the hate out of me, he said. Sarah crossed her arms. That's an odd thing to say to the girl you cornered. He sighed, his shoulders slumping. My dad taught me men don't break, don't apologize. I thought making others small would make me big. Then you knocked me down. Sarah studied him. The problem isn't your dad. It's that you haven't unlearned it. He nodded, then asked, Can I help? Be the guy who gets thrown so the girls can practice? She didn't answer, but the next class, he was there, barefoot, taking falls as girls learned to stand tall. Carter came later, alone, his apology quiet but raw. I was cruel. You didn't deserve it. Sarah nodded. Thank you for saying it. Ellis left a sketch in her locker, a girl in motion, powerful, alive. No note, just his signature. The cracks in Lincoln High's walls were letting people out. By spring, the school had changed. New posters declared hands-off as policy. Self-defense was mandatory for freshmen. The gym filled with girls who stood taller, unafraid. When Sarah won the Student Catalyst Award, she took the stage, her voice steady. I came here invisible, she said. I thought staying small would keep me safe. But hate doesn't care if you're silent. I didn't want to fight, but I had to. Now I stand for every girl who feels unseen. You're not alone. The auditorium roared, Maya's proud tear catching the light. Sarah stepped through Lincoln High's doors one final morning, her walk unhurried, her presence a quiet force. A young girl, no older than 11, stopped her. Can I be like you? Sarah crouched down, smiling. You already are. The school pulsed with respect, not fear. Jake, Carter, and Ellis had rebuilt themselves, not as kings, but as boys learning to listen. Sarah wasn't just a survivor, she lit a fire that would burn for generations. What do you think about Sarah's story? Have you ever faced or witnessed injustice? And how did you respond? Should violence ever be a response to cruelty, or is there another way? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Want to hear your perspective. Every voice matters in breaking the silence.